on the seashore. Thus Israel saw the great work, which the Lord had done in Egypt. So the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord and his servant Moses. It says here where it says, Israel saw the great work which the Lord had done. My margin here, my Bible says, Israel saw the hand with which the Lord worked. They were witnesses to his exerted work there. In Deuteronomy 32, let's move ahead in the story here. Of course, every single day that's in that historical period, we don't have all the written information about every day, but every single day the Lord was working. He was working with Israel. Sometimes he had to work, punish Israel, but he was at work all the time. Here in Deuteronomy 32. Deuteronomy 32. And I'll start with the verse right before it. Then Moses spoke in the hearing of all the assembly of Israel the words of this song until they were ended. Here's the song, another song of Moses. Give ear, O heavens, and I will speak, and hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. Let my teaching drop as the rain, my speech distill as the dew, as raindrops on the tender herb and as showers on the grass. For I proclaim the name of the Lord, ascribe greatness to our God. He is the rock, his work is perfect. His work was not shabby. His work was not something that you forgot about. His work was memorable. To the Israelites, when they saw the greatness of the miracles that they saw around them, Moses here just couldn't help but say, he's wonderful, he's great. The work that he does is just unbelievable. And in a way, you might feel kind of wishing we were back in those days and saw all of that, but of course then we would have had to be an Israelite and suffer the way they did too. But there's going to come a day when Christ returns, and we will see the magnificence, the might that he has, and the work that he'll be building out to us to do under his supervision. Let's look at Psalms now. This is a Psalm of David in Psalm 8. David was one who he was not a perfect individual, but he was a man of God. And when he set his mind to it, he could be very effective. In Psalm 8, here I'll pick up in verse 3. When I consider the heavens, the work of your finger, what we just read about back in Genesis, the moon, the stars which you have ordained, what is man that you're mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you visit him? You have made him a little lower than the angels, and you've crowned him with glory and honor. You've made him to have dominion over the works of your hands. That's what's been going on for the last 6,000 years. You have put all things under his feet, all sheep and oxen, even the beasts of the field, birds of the air, fish of the sea that pass through the paths of the seas. Like I said, the Lord took everything that he had made in that first week of creation, placed it all under man's control. What a privilege we have to be able to live in a world that was given to us by our Creator, the one who created it all. His work, and the Father's work has become engaged in the work of salvation. And this is something that we can pick up here in John 4, when Jesus took on the role of Savior. First, he was the Creator, then he was the Lord, now he's the Savior. John 4. And John had an awful lot to say about this topic. We'll hit a number of his scriptures that talk about it. But in John 4, I'll begin reading here in verse 31. In the meantime, we're breaking into a thought here, but in the meantime, his disciples came to Jesus and they said, Rabbi, eat. Apparently he hadn't eaten for a while, and they realized, you need your strength. But he said to them, I have food to eat of which you do not know. And therefore the disciples, they looked at one another, okay, where is it? Where do you have it stashed? But he said to it, therefore the disciples said to one another, has anyone brought him anything to eat? And Jesus said, my food is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. Another work in process was going on then. Jesus likened his desire to finish the work that he came to earth to do to anybody's desire to eat. You look forward to eating, he looked forward to the work that he was doing. Good food is good for us, and we enjoy it. He enjoyed the work he was doing, even though he knew there was something terrible that would come at the end of his human life. And he spent on many hours, I'm sure, in prayer with God, asking for the strength. But he knew when it was. Consider this: Jesus lived a life. What was he, 30-some years old when he died? How would you like to have been born? And from the time that you were old enough to think about things, how would you like to have known the day that you would die? He knew the date. He knew what time of day it would be. And worst of all, he knew how it was going to be. He lived with that all his life, knowing that was the target that he was going for. And yet he was faithful, and he did the work that he had to do, that he was sent there to do, that he volunteered to do, and God sent him down to die for us. Well, in John 5 here, verse 5, a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been in that condition for a long time, he said to him, you want to be made well? He had compassion on this poor man. The sick man answered and said, sir, I don't have any man to put me into the pool. There was a pool there that, I don't know if it actually did this, but they said when water gets stirred, the first person in got healed. And I don't know if that was true or not, but he was waiting to get into the pool when the water was stirred up. But while I'm coming, another steps in before me. Well, Jesus said to him, he didn't say, well, I'll keep the other people out of the pool. No, all he said was, rise, take up your bed and walk. Up to the point right away. Well, immediately, the man was made well. And he took up his bed and he walked. And that day was the Sabbath. There's a little point I wanted to bring out. Jesus worked on the Sabbath, didn't he? It's a day that he commanded us to restrain from our jobs, but you can't get to the point where you won't lift up a book or do something people take it way too far. Jesus knew that he had come to save people. His work involved doing things on the Sabbath day. Now, he observed the Sabbath. He knew when the Sabbath was. He went to, he was in the synagogues. He was reading scriptures, but he was very balanced. The millennium that, this week we're observing, this 7,000, the 7,000 years from creation, is a type of the weekly Sabbath, isn't it? There have been 6,000 years, then the millennium will be the seventh day. And during the millennium, we'll keep the Sabbath. We'll teach the world to keep the Sabbath, refrain from your jobs. But guess what? All during that 1,000 years, we're going to be working. We're going to be working to guide people for God toward the next life that we're anticipating now. And Jesus was simply doing good when he told the man to get up and walk. But in verse 10, the Jews therefore said to him who was cured, it's the Sabbath. It's not lawful for you to carry your bed on the Sabbath. Totally overlooking what Jesus had just done, the work that he had accomplished. Well, he answered them, he who made me well said to me, take up your bed and walk. Now that should have been all that they would have had to hear. The man, he who healed me, if he's great enough to heal me, I ought to listen to him when he says, take up your bed and walk, even though you say it's a Sabbath. Well, then in verse 12, they asked him, who's the man who said to you, take up your bed and walk? But the one who was healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn. There was a multitude being in that place. So afterward, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, see, you've been made well. Now, sin no more. This comes with a little tag. You got to change your life. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you. Now, he wasn't insinuating it. The next time you sin, boom, you're going to be paralyzed again. No, change your life. Change your life for the better. That's just what he's saying to him. The man departed and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. Well, for this reason, the Jews persecuted Jesus and sought to kill him, not because he had healed somebody, but because he did it on the Sabbath, because he did good on the Sabbath. But Jesus answered and said, now this would really have ticked him off, I would think. My Father has been working until now, and I've been working. So just in those few words, he said a mouthful, didn't he? He said that God was his Father, and he told them that not only was he working, but God was working too. They had to have been, really boiling by then, because therefore the Jews sought all the more to kill him, because he not only broke the Sabbath, but he also said that God was his Father, making himself equal with God. Well, then Jesus answered and said to them, most assuredly I say to you, the Son can do nothing of himself but what he sees the Father do. For whatever he does, the Son also does in like manner. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all things that he himself does. He will show him greater works than these, that you may marvel. For as the Father raises the dead and gives life to them, even so the Son gives life to whom he will. The Father judges no one, but has committed all judgments to the Son, that all should honor the Son just as they honor the Father. He who does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him. Well, that was a scathing indictment of those Jews that were there to get him. Well, if you look here at John 6 now, John 6 and verse 22, and on the following day, when the people who were standing on the other side of the sea saw that there was no other boat there except that one which his disciples had entered, and that Jesus had not entered the boat with his disciples, but his disciples had gone away alone. However, other boats came from Tiberias, near the place where they had eaten bread after the Lord had given thanks. When the people therefore saw that Jesus was not there, nor his disciples, they also got into boats and came to Capernaum, seeking Jesus. And when they found him on the other side of the sea, they said to him, Rabbi, when did you come here? Well, Jesus answered and said, most assuredly I say to you, you seek me not because you saw the signs, but because you ate the loaves that were filled. Apparently that was true. That's what he told them. That's why they were looking for him, for something to eat. He said, do not labor for the food which perishes, but for the food which endures to everlasting life. Funny the word he used there, do not labor. Work. Don't work toward the things that aren't, going to last forever, but work toward the things that endure for everlasting life, which the Son of Man will give you, because God the Father has set his seal on him. And then they said to him, what shall we do that we may work the works of God? Jesus answered and said to them, this is the work of God, that you believe in him whom he sent. So even the people who were listening, Jesus was saying, got a job for you. There's work here. That's your work. To believe on me, to believe in Jesus Christ, and to believe in God. A perfect, concise description of the work God and Jesus are doing, bringing people to conversion. And it's also showing us of the work that we will be engaged in when the millennium begins. It's going to be a beginning, a fantastic spectacle in the sky, of course, when Christ comes down, when he comes down to Jerusalem and he gathers the saints together. And it's going to be, overwhelmingly wonderful when we see it. But remember, soon after that, the work starts.